And welcome to the Watchtower episode 1, everyone. I am NittanyLionRoar, and I'm really excited to be joined by a special guest today. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? I don't think you need any introduction, but let everyone know who you are.
Mr. Spock.
Welcome, welcome. I know a lot of people were really excited for us to get together and have a discussion about everything empires and puzzles. So that's what we're going to do today. We have several topics that we want to get through. But first, we're just going to talk a little bit about ourselves. So if you are fans of mine and you've typically been on my channel, you don't know who Mr. Spock is, you're going to get to know him a little bit. Make sure to go to his channel and subscribe to him. We like to do very analytical types of videos. So if you like my content, you'll like his too, and vice versa there. So we're on my channel today. So if you're on my channel, you can also subscribe here. You're going to want to make sure to be subscribed on both of our channels because when we do the Watchtower about once a month, we're going to go back and forth on each other's channels. So you definitely want to make sure that you're connected to both of us. The links are also in the description of this live stream, so you can go there to do that. But why don't we kick things off here and just get to introduce ourselves to the audience a bit. Feel free to chat. We have the chat box up there. We're going to have a Q&A section, so we might not be answering your questions right away, but we will get to that partway through the stream today. So first, Mr. Spock, what tattoo are you getting?
Oh man. Well, I thought about this for a long time, and there will be no tattoos happening today. None so far, and this would not be the right event for that. Yeah.
Yeah, I I've always thought about getting a tattoo, and then I've just never done it because I'm like, everywhere I think about putting it on my body, I'm like, nah, that's a stupid place. And so
hmm
I've never picked. But if I had to get an Empires and Puzzles tattoo, I would clearly have to get Aslar. That would just have to be the thing.
That would be the most on brand, yeah.
So yeah, I guess I'm curious to know because I've this is actually coming up on, oh my gosh, 3 years I've been in Empires and Puzzles, like an old man in this game.
Yeah.
But it was Christmas Day about 3 years ago that I started. So what first got you into Empires and Puzzles?
It was an it was an ad that I saw, so they'll be happy to hear their ad campaign was working. But I was playing, God, some other mobile game I can't remember now, but nothing that I was that into. And the ad for it came up, and I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." And I had played Candy Crush in the past, maybe years before that. I was like, "Oh, it looks like Candy Crush, but when you make matches, little guys come out and attack the other team." And I was like, "That looks fun." And then I downloaded it and was like, "Holy crap! There's a lot to figure out here." Um, Between the base building, the hero leveling, and that kind of stuff. But yeah, it was from seeing one of their ads, being remotely intrigued, and if I had known how complicated it was to start, I probably wouldn't have dived in. But yeah, it seemed simple enough, and then over time, I just got hooked on it.
That's actually what surprised me about this game too. When it was Christmas Day, I was basically just kind of bored. It was like a lull in the day. I was over at my wife's family's house, and we just weren't really doing anything. I was kind of lounging on a chair, and I
Hmm.
had just gotten this new iPhone, so I was kind of going through it to see what uh, good games I could download on it. And an ad popped up just like you were saying, and so that's why I downloaded it. And at first, I thought, oh, it's a pretty simplistic game. I'll just play this today or whatever, and while I'm bored.
Yeah.
And but then, like, of course, as I kept playing it, the depth of the game just really surprised me and was kind of interesting, especially for a match three type of game. So the good people want to know, what's with the mask?
So the anonymity part of it is kind of fun for me. I enjoy being just a character who's talking to you in your phone and who you're quite familiar with, but I like kind of keeping that barrier there. Sort of like if any of you are familiar with Daft Punk, I kind of enjoy how when they perform, which this is slightly different than, um, they have those sort of personas, more curated personas than my own at the moment. But I kind of like the idea of just keeping that slight veil, despite being more in the public eye. So that's always been kind of fun for me. So this just makes it more fun for me.
Yeah, I actually had done the anonymity thing for a while too. And it it was actually not long ago. It was right after the pandemic started, actually. So I'd played the game for several years, not
Mm-hmm.
really revealing myself. And then someone asked me for an interview, and I was like, you know what? I'll just go ahead and reveal myself. But I wonder if you'll ever reveal yourself. What do you think?
I can see it happening. Yeah. Um, but yeah, at the moment, this is more fun for me.
Yeah, for sure.
Were
Um,
you conflicted at all about that decision, or did it seem
yeah,
like you were ready at that time?
very very much so. And I still don't want to get too much into my personal life, but some people know I work in a school, and the main reason I wanted to stay anonymous was I was afraid that some of my students might stumble on me on YouTube.
Hmm.
And then I they actually probably would like that, but
Yeah.
but I'm not sure that I want my students knowing my YouTube channel based on some of the stuff that I put on it. So
Hmm. Fair enough.
if the principal got calls from parents, that might be a kind of
Yeah.
interesting situation to deal with. But
Yeah.
I don't put anything like the channel's relatively clean and stuff.
Yeah.
But I have been playing Cyberpunk a little bit recently,
Yeah.
and that's that's not real safe for middle school kids. So
Yeah.
um, so yeah. What do you think when you think about all the heroes on your roster? So I'm not talking about overall, but just the ones that you've been able to get.
Yeah.
Which one has been your favorite to play with?
Well, I feel like I can think of a lot of layers to that question. There's a lot of heroes. I think I've gotten a lot of good heroes, and there's a lot of them that are fun to play with. And I think over time, the ones that are good sort of changes a little bit depending on what's happening with the meta. So or what's happening with nerfs and stuff. Unfortunately, so it does change over time. But I think the one that's been most consistently fun for me, um, partially because I tend to just be lazy and raid with the same team as much as I can, has been Finley. So no surprise that Finley is going to be on anyone's favorite list. But yeah, he's just fun. He's not a I've seen people describe him as just an easy button, but there's a little bit of timing that needs to happen with him based on the buffs. So occasionally you'll fire him and you're only hitting one for not that strong of a hit. But if you can find an opening where some buffs are happening, then yeah, you can just kind of explode the whole team. So I use him with Cobalt, and that follow up damage after the defense down is pretty devastating.
Oh, that is devastating. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, and I'm so jealous. You have Finley. I have tried and I have tried
yeah,
several times when that event has come up, but I've never gotten him. And I I don't know if you've seen some of my other videos where I talk about summoning, but I don't tend to chase heroes either, so I'm not the kind of person to sit down and just like unload money until I get
yeah,
him. I do try for him when I get him, but when if like I've budgeted my money that month and I haven't gotten him, I'm like, okay, I'm moving on. I just like I really enjoy playing with the things that I do get, and I try not to stress too much about the stuff I don't get because that's what makes this game kind of intriguing sometimes too, I think, is just being able to figure out how to make your own puzzle pieces work. Like your roster is your puzzle pieces, and I like seeing how it fits into the broader world of empires and puzzles. So I might not have all the ideal heroes and things.
yeah,
Uh, I certainly don't. I've missed out on several good ones. Like Ursina used to be just absolutely a monster tank back in the day when purple tanks were all over the place, and I never
yeah.
got her. And but I have gotten lucky and gotten some really good heroes. So like I know what people are gonna guess my favorite hero is, so I think it's worth mentioning Costume Regard.
Mm,
But the meta's changing a bit. So if we were to have this Watchtower episode 1 like a month ago, I would absolutely say Costume Regard.
yeah,
And we're gonna talk about this later in the show, but the meta's changed a bit.
yeah.
And I'm actually thinking that I need to move away from Costume Regard a little bit.
Interesting.
So the most fun hero I've been playing with, I'm gonna say for now my favorite hero, the most fun one, and this is probably also gonna change, but it has been Lady Loki, because
Mm,
it has been super fun when I'm attacking a defense that has like Teleria and Vela and Gravemaker or Jean-Francois and Drake and stuff like that. When they all go off at the same time, and I can take Lady Loki and just use her special to not only cleanse my team, but just it increases her damage to its max, and she just annihilates the other team. Like one hero that just absolutely annihilates the defense. that was a great hero idea for offense, and it's rare enough that it's not like game breaking. So like people who get her are
Yeah,
really lucky to use her. And you only get one shot with her in war, so it's not like super overpowered. I mean, if you had
yeah,
could somehow get like 5 of her. But again, the meta's changing a bit. Lady Loki might not be as powerful in the coming weeks and months as she has been. So maybe I'll have a new favorite hero coming up in a
yeah,
bit.
yeah. I've got a
I,
couple thoughts on what you've been saying there. I feel like the not chasing heroes thing that you mentioned is one of the keys because you can drop. I mean, there's people who are definitely doing it. You can spend thousands of dollars and still not get what you want. And once you realize that that's the case, you realize how fruitless it can be to just, chase heroes, chase heroes, throw money at the game. It's not a guarantee of anything, even still, which is kind of crazy that the game is like that. But I'm totally with you around that. And I try to make the same suggestions to my viewers as well, which is like, you can try for it, but don't go crazy about it. And I think you have to stop looking at the leaderboard sometimes because you just see all these things that you want or that would be fun to play with, but the game just doesn't work that way, and it can tempt you to throw more money than you want to. So yeah, I think you have a wise perspective there, and I think that's one that's come from your experience while playing, and I think that's one that people should listen to also.
yeah, I think for any of these gotcha games, if there's one thing that I could pass on that's just like a real life thing, that's it. Like this is just a game. Remember, it's there to have fun, and it's not there to sink your finances. It shouldn't be anyway. And also, if it's not fun, like if you're just um, like feeling bad about it
Congrats.
all the time because of what you're missing out on and things like that. I mean, that's how people tend to develop gambling addictions and things like that. And
Yeah,
I would recommend, and I've personally reached out to some people who were complaining all the time about the game because of things like that, to just say, remember, it's a game. It should be fun. Either you know you'll need to kind of refocus on having fun again and just think about what it means to have fun with what you have, or like you don't have to play it. It's a game, right?
yeah,
But I know that sounds weird to come from someone who's like doing YouTube for the game, but I think it's important to put priorities in perspective when
yeah,
talking about things like this.
yeah, yeah. Totally agree, man.
So I know that I have an interesting question for you. Actually, before I go on, um,
Hmm.
I know some people are going to remember back from when I did my interview at the beginning of the pandemic, I said Costume Quintus was my favorite. So I just want to mention, because I know I'm going to get comments about that.
Hmm.
My favorite hero changes, and that's okay because,
Yeah,
back then, it was novel to me and really interesting. And I especially love Costume Quintus in like very fast tournaments and things. But
yeah.
um, it's always changing. So I'll probably have a new one like next month. We'll see.
And you also didn't have Loki at that time, probably, so you couldn't even add her to the question because she wasn't there yet.
Right, right. Yeah. So yeah, and when did she come around? It was probably around that time, shortly after maybe. But yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
somehow I've
So
gotten more red heroes than anything, so she's on the short list. I did get lucky with her off a few tokens on the last portal, but I've got like somehow like 14 reds that are all possibilities, and she's one of them. But I saw the other day that if she gets hit by Frigg, she does her dispel and like recasting thing first. So if she gets hit with defense down, she places defense down before she does her damage, and then her damage is boosted by reallocating that
ooh,
ailment. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. So
yeah,
defense down is especially good with her.
that's excellent. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I I don't think and I realize how this is probably going to come across to those who don't have her, but I don't think you can feel the power or understand the power of Loki until you've had her on your own offense and clicked her to fire off the special. And you're
Hmm.
like, oh my gosh, this one hero did all that. That's
Hmm.
insane.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that they came out with a good offensive hero like that too, because it feels like a lot of the heroes they come out with are, typically the good ones that get talked about. Most people are talking about for defense.
Hmm.
And so like, when they come out with a really good offensive hero like this, you can be pretty sure they're probably not going to nerf it because like it's only on defense you really feel the frustration or like see a hero over and over and over again that you're like, I hate that hero. But like nobody feels their defense getting beat by Lady Loki. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So nobody's
That's where
calling
I
for
feel
Lady
like
Loki to be nerfed.
the nerf talk is unfairly placed around the heroes that are strong on defense because the heroes that are just great on offense, like Gazelle, for example, is not good on defense because she's a huge vulnerability for your team, but she's great on offense, and no one talks about her whatsoever because, again, like you said, you don't see what people attack you with. So you don't know how easily the people that beat you are beating you with strong heroes. You just see when you have a hard time. But we can get to that later with the current meta discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so I don't know if you have an answer to this question or not. I know in our pre-talk you were saying that you might not, but I have an idea for you if you don't. But if you were a hero in Empires and Puzzles, what do you
Hmm.
think your special ability would be? And if you don't have an answer, that's okay.
Yeah, I was thinking about this, and nothing was coming to mind. The first idea I had is like because the way I play the game is to try to absorb as much information as I can and then use that to my benefit. I was trying to think of a hero special that could revolve around that idea. I guess Mysterio is the closest thing that exists like that, but that didn't feel quite right. But something to that nature that I just couldn't quite fully flesh out.
You know what is funny is I was thinking of a special for you that was actually kind of similar, and
Mm,
this is what I came up with. So I came up with an area of effect type of damage to all heroes of
mm-hmm,
like 125%, something like not real big because the second ability would be like more powerful.
mm-hmm,
And that would be to silence all enemies for 2 turns, which gives you the time you need to gather the information on the board and move things around to how you need it to be.
mm-hmm.
Um, and that way you can get a step ahead of the defense. So I don't
Yeah,
know, but kind of like Cabin Boy Peter silences or Mickey silences, but
yeah,
you would silence the whole team for like 2 turns.
yeah. That actually, I want that hero. Actually, silence to all, even for shorter turns. It's kind of like how AOE hitters are taking a sniper's damage and spreading it out more. Obviously, they tend to hit harder overall when you add everything together. But I like that idea of having a silence that hits everyone, but is shorter than it would be from Mickey or someone like that.
Yeah, and you know what's funny is like I didn't think of an ability for myself. I was trying, but I
Yeah.
thought of one for you. I don't know if anything comes to mind for you. I had back in my original interview, like in March, I think I had thought of something then, but again, I evolve and I'm like always trying to think of new things and stuff like that. So I don't know if anything comes to mind for you, but I hadn't really thought of much for myself. I usually like to be like fast and aggressive. I like to get underneath the defense if I can, but so I probably
Yeah.
have to be a very fast hero or something like that.
Yeah. No, nothing came to mind for me.
So yeah, I don't know, chat. What do you think? What would my ability be? I'm
Yeah, I'm
thinking I
curious to
would
hear
be
other
aggressive
people's
and very
ideas.
fast, but what put in the chat what you think my hero ability would be if I were a hero in the game. All right. Next question is what games do you play outside of Empires and Puzzles, if any? I'm sure that we all play different games and things like that, but just to kind of give
Yeah.
everybody a sense of what you like. You mentioned
Yeah,
Candy
so
Crush.
I've always enjoyed video games. I've had multiple consoles over the years. Um, in high school, for me, was when Halo was really big, and I had an Xbox, and a friend and I were in an electronics class, and we figured out how to mod our Xboxes to put some sort of emulator chip on it, so that it was you could access games for other systems right there in your Xbox. So yeah, I've played games a lot over the years. Currently, with a friend of mine, we're playing through Skyrim right now as like a shared character. Um, and then I'm also playing. We played Breath of the Wild before that, which was one of the best games I've played. That was incredible. Um, and I'm looking forward to the next one, which hopefully should be coming out in like a year or so.
Oh
And
my
then I'm
gosh,
also
it's
playing
only a year
Ghost.
away. Oh, I can't wait for that. You just got me
Yeah,
really excited. I didn't know that.
they dropped something else in the meantime that was like done by another studio or something through the name, and that didn't really appeal to me. Um, but yeah, there is one on the horizon, and I think COVID has impacted that, but I think it's due towards the end of 2021. Um, and then the only other game that I'm playing at the moment is Ghost of Tsushima, that samurai game that came out. I think it's PlayStation only. Um, but yeah, that's been a really fun game too. I like those
Nice.
open world games that have like a really sort of beautiful open world that's enjoyable to spend time in.
I am so with you on that. And that since you just mentioned um, that those games are absolutely things that I like too, which is why I was really anticipating Cyberpunk 2077.
Hmm.
It is an open world, very different though, like not like the beautiful landscapes of mountains and trees and rivers and nature and stuff like that, but
Yeah.
like a beautiful urban scape.
Hmm.
And so I was really looking forward to that. And so it's out, and I've done a couple of videos of it already. Um, so I've been playing that. This probably isn't the place to share thoughts on that in particular. I think the graphics are amazing. That's what I'll say. I think they've got some things to fix with bugs and whatever, and the story's a little bit more linear than I would have wanted for an RPG type of game. But
Yeah.
um, uh, it's okay. I'm still figuring it out. I haven't really fully thought that one out. But yeah, I like that game a lot. I've always played like Call of Duty. I played Halo,
Hmm.
like you did back in the day. Um, and oh gosh, let's see if there's any really different kind of game that I played. I guess I like Fallout. Yeah, there's kind of a pattern to the games that I enjoy. I guess
Yeah.
another one that I've been playing a lot recently that I'm like absolutely addicted to is Elite Dangerous. I don't know if you've heard of that game, but the
No.
the Epic Game Store just they give out a free game every week, which I think is super cool. When I see them put out a
Yeah.
neat one that I've never heard of or experienced before, I stream it, and I streamed Elite Dangerous, and it was awesome. And I kept playing it, and it's super cool. It's like this open galaxy game where you can fly around the Milky Way, the actual Milky Way. It's in a 1-to-1 ratio. So you have to like you're in your
Wow.
spaceship and you fly to different star systems that have space stations, and you can mine asteroids for rare metals and other resources, or you can, build a combat ship and, be a good guy taking like bounty hunter taking out bad guys, or you could be a pirate and steal people's stuff that they're mine. I mean, it's amazing. Anyway,
Wow.
so those are the kind of games that I like. Why don't we get to the meat of our show though now, which
Yeah.
is empires and puzzles. So
Never heard of
let's
it.
um, all right, and I see people asking questions in the chat, and so once again, we're not ignoring you right now. What we're going to do is get back to questions. So if you want to make sure that we answer one of your questions, make sure to save it for the Q&A part, which is going to come up in a little bit, maybe 15 minutes or so. But we'll try to look back on some of the questions that have been asked. All right, so for empires and puzzles, let's talk about the new war rules. So they've been in place for a couple of months now, and we've had a chance to take in some information about it and how it's going. They wanted to diversify the game a little bit, make it more interesting. War had kind of become stale, so they introduced Rush Attack, War Equalizer, and Undead Horde. And
Yeah.
those particular war rules are different from the original war rules of arrows, field aid, and attack boost, because arrows, field aid, and attack boost only affected, like they only benefited the defense. Like they hurt you as an offense, as an attacker.
Yeah.
And the new war rules affect both equally, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
But I don't know. What are your thoughts? How's that been affecting the gameplay? Do you like it? Do you not like it? What do you think?
I enjoy that they're adding stuff to the game. I think it's important to keep adding features, hopefully not all money grab features, but to keep adding things so that you don't start to feel bored with what it is that's happening. So in that sense, I enjoy just the slight difference. However, I totally agree that they seem to be things that benefit the attacker just as much. And so, I watch other people's war videos sometimes, and it seems like scores are climbing higher than they ever have before for that reason. So I feel like ultimately, I'm okay with it. And yeah, it has been different. I don't really like Rush Attack that much if I were to try to rank them, because the teams that people put up are pretty crazy. So it becomes like, can you get 6 tiles first? Is
Hmm.
what it feels like. So if you get a bad starting board, it's very hard to recover from the onslaught that's going to be coming at you if there's a bunch of Alfreiks or other equally strong, slow or very slow heroes on the board. So that one's a little like the tournaments. It's a little bit more random, but at least with the tournaments, you can use the same attack team the whole time, which is what I do. Usually I go double mana control and then Black Knight just in case, and then some other strong hitters. But when you have to switch up 6 different war teams and go against these crazy defenses that are all firing off really fast, it's tough.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was actually a little worried to see whenever they put Rush Attack in, because of how I love the tournaments, by the way, but those
Mm,
tournaments were the most frustrating to me. I've talked before in several of the videos I've done in the past about luck versus skill, how much luck is needed and how much skill is needed.
mm,
And I'm a big fan of skill-based games, which is why I like this game, because there's some
mm,
skill involved, but there's no doubt luck involved too.
mm.
And the more luck that's involved, the less I like the game. And the
Yeah.
more skill that's involved, the more I like the game.
Yep.
And rush attack, I feel, tips the scales a little bit more towards luck. Because you're right, who gets 6 tiles first? I mean, like, can you get 6 tiles in the first 2 or 3 turns, or what? Like
Yeah.
and that's kind of a coin flip, which I don't really like.
Yeah.
But so I don't know. Like, I think I've been doing okay with the rush attack. I think it takes a different mindset. What I've learned to do with rush attack, both in tournament and in wars, is um, because I have like 2 sets of level 11 mana troops or higher typically for all my colors. So what I'll try to do is maybe go 2, 2, and 1 and just make sure all of my heroes are going to go off with 2 matches if I can.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, I
think
did
that's the
that for
way to
the
do it.
first time last war, where I was like, you know what, I'm gonna choose teams outside my usual 3-2, and based on the troops that I have, and I don't have 2 level 11 troops in every color yet. I prioritized the ones where I had 2 very fast heroes, like purple, red, and yellow. But I tried the same thing, and it actually worked pretty well. And I even used some heroes at 370, like Mickey, and I think I forgot to use Raphael the first time. But heroes that normally I could never use during war, but with the faster mana charging and the appropriate troop on them, it got me to explore my roster a little bit more, and I did appreciate that actually.
Absolutely. You find new synergies with it because now you can take a slow hero or a very slow hero that has a cool ability but just never goes off in time, or it's backwards. Like, some of the slow hero abilities are great if only they went off before some of your other heroes' abilities. And in the rush attack, you can kind of get that to happen. So you kind of discover new synergies, which is cool.
Yeah,
So I don't
that's
hate it, but it is frustrating if the tiles don't come.
yeah.
What do you think about War Equalizer?
I have not figured out that timing yet. There's been like 3 of those wars at least. And I'm like, when? I still can't figure out when it's going to go off, how quickly the bar is going to charge. So that one screws me over a lot. I don't think I posted my war attacks from that past war, but it, yeah, it was. I messed myself up a few times. In using using Gazelle or something like that, and then only for the equalizer to go off right afterwards. So I still haven't quite figured that one out yet. It seems like it happens before the enemy team fires and before it's your turn. So
Mm-hmm.
they kind of have the slight advantage over equalizer in that sense. Um, but yeah, it's. Have you figured that out? Do you feel like you know exactly when it's going to happen? It seems a little
Um,
mysterious to me still.
I feel like I understand it, but like every turn and every move I'm making, it's not necessarily at the forefront of my mind, so I don't feel like I'm making optimal decisions yet. I
Mhm.
feel like I know what I'm supposed to be doing, and then I just make a sort of natural robotic move that I've been trained to do for years now in this game, and I'm like, no, that doesn't work with this war type. Like,
Yep.
why? As soon as I get my Grave Maker to go off, and then I fire him, and I'm like, oh
Yeah.
no, the War Equalizer is gonna go off immediately.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. And another thing that I keep forgetting about it is it removes the stacks. I'm thinking of it as a cleansing war, but it's not just a cleansing war, it's a dispelling war too, which
Yeah.
uh like you get your little, I depend on costume regard a lot in war attacks, and removes the buffs too, removes the stacks.
Yeah.
So that's one reason I was mentioning I might move a little bit away from costume regard, because a lot of his power doesn't work in that particular war. The war rule itself is negating him
Yeah.
almost entirely.
Yeah. All
But
right.
this is
This
definitely
mask
an
is driving me crazy. We're gonna do a partial reveal here.
there you go. All right, for the first time, everyone, we know that Mr. Spock has a beard. So we've got the bearded YouTubers. I didn't even know that, guys. Excellent. All right. So very cool, very cool. Yeah, Some people were mentioning the mask was muffling your voice a little bit too, so maybe they'll be able to hear you a little bit clearer
Yeah, it's
now.
constantly sliding down my face too, so it's just starting to drive me crazy.
Yeah. All right. And then last thoughts on the new war rules. Undead horde is interesting.
Yeah.
Is there any benefit to it though, or is it just kind of random?
Well, I've leveled up Grimble to 370 in the meantime because of that. I haven't used them yet because the war hasn't come around yet, but what do I think about that? I think Scotty is is obviously a fantastic match for that war. Don't have her. Wish I had her. I've got some good blue options right now, and I think I have 7 telescopes. Maybe I'm pretty slow to use my materials. So yeah, it'd be nice if she came in. I feel like the game, especially looking at the season 4 heroes. I don't know if you've seen that stuff going around yet. I made a video yesterday, but minions and boosted health seem like they're here to stay, or those mechanics being involved. So yeah, I feel like Scotty's super strong. It is bringing up some other heroes. Like I think people are leveling Grimble now because they're like, all right, if there's going to be that many minions on the board, I can fire Grimble, and that can help charge up my Alfreich or my other slower hero or something. So
Hmm.
I do think it is getting people to use their rosters differently and to look at heroes they had been ignoring before. And I think there's strong value in that because as the meta changes, I feel like it can be a pretty narrow group of heroes that excel, especially if you look at defense teams. You know, there's like oftentimes there is one or two best defense teams if you're looking at, if you look at the leaderboard and see what is objectively performing the best, there seems to be a pretty finite range. So I do like how the war rules have changed the way you look at your roster, changed the way you play the game. Like you said, you're trying to do a move that you've been conditioned to do for years, and it's the wrong move. So they are keeping it a little bit fresh. I think some games, in the interest of keeping things fresh, introduce too many new mechanics and then just changes the game too much. So I hope they're trying to be slow and methodical about that. Um,
Yeah. Hmm.
but yeah,
For
the
sure.
the minion one is interesting, and it definitely benefits you as well because it's kind of like um, both teams healing. So I look forward to it going off for my team because it can help keep me alive longer. But
I
it's
like
a
it.
it's an interesting one, and I feel like the minion heroes are still developing in terms of who's going to be good in those contexts as the game moves that way.
One thing I've liked about it now that you mention it is that okay, first I'm gonna mention something I haven't liked about War, like maybe 2 months ago, which was sometimes if the board was just slow coming, like if you had to move things around and whatever, it felt like with all these level 20 fully emblemed heroes that sometimes before their specials even went off, just their regular attacks, like took my attacking team's life down so much. Like I'd have heroes that were almost dead and they didn't even fire yet. Like
Yeah,
they were just doing their regular attacks. And one thing the undead minions does is kind of protects you a little bit from that.
yeah,
So like you have these heroes that are almost dead. I mean, what happens a lot is those regular attacks take your heroes down, or can take your heroes down pretty far, and then when the defense does fire, if it's before you've been able to fire any heroes, they tend to just kill off those heroes. But with the minions, now they keep those heroes alive just by a sliver, and if it's your healer, then you can bring your team back, or maybe you can get ahead of killing some of the defensive heroes that are about to go off.
yeah.
Um, Okay, so do you think the war rules themselves have changed the war meta at all?
Yeah, and I think it's for the reasons that we've already mentioned, which are it's making you look at your roster differently. It's letting other heroes really shine. Like I don't think we'd see. I think people kind of Alfred came out, and I fought against her and was like, the speed is a huge problem for her. She's obviously very powerful, but the speed is a big problem. And rush attacks, for example, she's the most dominant hero now in rush attack. Both tournaments and war. So those don't come along too often, but I've watched people go from being like, well, she's okay, she's very strong, but her speed is very slow, so it's sometimes she's not going to fire at all. To now being like, oh my god, we need to get her. And like the top alliances, I'm sure are scrambling to try to have a full. I'm sure they would love to have a full field of Alpharites for a rush attack war.
Mm-hmm.
Like people at the top kind of get really high on the idea of being the most dominant, or like just having the craziest rosters. And so I think there would be like a huge amount of pride for some of those teams to have Alpharites all across the board. So in that sense, the meta has changed a lot, because that went from a hero that people that were not that excited about, to one that felt like a must-have for certain aspects of the game.
Yeah, for sure.
And then
And
Scotty, for example, when she first came out, I tested her out and was like, she can't even kill a minion with her special. So what's the point? You have to weaken the minions just enough first, and then she fires. Like, I don't see the point. And then they buffed her, and now she can kill just about any minion with one hit. And so, for undead horde, she's kind of the one of the best things you can put out there, because that damage cannot be cleared by anyone short of you dying and being resurrected.
yeah, absolutely. I actually want to roll back a little bit, since you're talking about minions, to Grimble, and make a point about something that I tell people all the time. Like, sometimes I crap on heroes whenever they come out, and I'm like, that hero's not very useful right now, or I give it a bad grade or whatever. But then when people are like, oh man, that sucks, I'm gonna feed it away. Like, I made a Ruben video where I'm not real high on Ruben right now. I think he's
Same.
way too late to the meta. I think he's not a very good hero. So I had people already like, oh man, I just got him. Guess I'm gonna feed him away. I'm like, no, don't do that, for the same reason you shouldn't have done that to Grimble,
Yeah.
because you just store him away and wait and see. Like, the meta might change, you know? And Grimble's a really good example of that. Like, back when Grimble came out, like, minions just weren't a thing. It was like, what is this hero for? Like, I don't understand. But now we're getting overloaded with minions, and Grimble has some use.
Hmm.
So, like, for those who have Grimble just sitting on your roster and you've saved him, good on you, because now you might be able to use him in wars and things like that. And like you've just been teasing, there's some minion heavy mechanics coming up.
Yeah.
And so it's gonna matter. And so that's why I recommend to people never to feed your 5-star legendary heroes away. You might not ever get them back, and if it ends up being a good one, sorry, like.
Yeah.
um but yeah, overall, I like the new war rules. I like how they benefit the offense too. um and I do think that they've done something in a creative way to help diversify the meta in a way in which nerfs and buffs do not. Like, I think nerfs and buffs are the straightforward way for small giant games to try and change the meta. And I think it's also one of the worst things they can do, at least as far as nerfs, because it just really ticks people off. Like, people
Yeah.
don't like the meta to change because you're like ruining their heroes. That's not a feel good. But if you introduce new rules that cause you to have to look at your roster and use different heroes in a better way, that's good. That's fun. That's like
Yeah.
why we play this game, right?
Oh, so you mean creative solutions to problems as opposed to just slashing things? Yeah. Yeah, I've got some pretty strong feelings about that, because and I see this, it's kind of this culture that's emerged since they've been doing that. Like, they've been making adjustments for a while. But now there's this thing of like a new strong hero comes out, and people are like, we have to nerf this hero. And they feel like it has to be done or the game's going to be ruined. But it's like, if you've spent money to get a hero, which many of us have, it feels pretty bad for them to come in and make it worse. You're like, all right, cool. What's my incentive? Yeah. So yeah, as the way you described it, it seems to hurt the game all across the board. Where there's a lot of things they can do, like buffing heroes. Like, God forbid they, make a season 1 hero stronger or something for free. You know, so
Right.
yeah, I find it frustrating the way that I'm fine for releasing counters to heroes, sure, especially if it's hero of the month. It's a little bit easier to get, but yeah, the whole nerfing thing of like keeping other heroes down instead of bringing the rest up is just exhausting. And I've been sort of outspoken on that recently on the forum, because there's just these threads popping up. Or I posted a video with I posted a video about what I thought was the strongest defense meta now, and people are like, "Oh my god, we have to nerf these heroes right away." I'm like, "What? Why? Why do we have to do that? What's wrong with having some strong heroes in the game?"
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I get it if there's a hero that's so overwhelming. Like, I think people were so sick of Teleria.
Yeah,
But my thing all along was, like, don't put out a hero in the first place that you're going to have to nerf as best you can. I mean, I know that beta testers were telling them before, this Teleria is too strong.
yeah,
But like, once you release it, like, it is only a feel bad if you're ever gonna have to nerf heroes that people got and spent time on. And
Yeah,
so find other ways, find these creative ways. And I think the war has done that. Like I know for our wars, and we're fighting typically like tier one type wars against teams that everybody had Teleria and Bela and Gravemaker and Jabberwock and all of that.
yeah,
And so uh you know um the new war rules, what they've done is make us look at purple tanks sometimes. And like we still use Teleria tanks. I'm a little mixed on whether that's still the best way to go in some wars. I almost think like we might be stronger if we just went with purple tanks. But I know in like sort of a tier two or mid range type of alliance war, there's even more colors that are making their way to the forefront that possibly have use. I've been hearing some alliances testing out like red tanks. I've
yep,
even been hearing some flirt with blue tanks. I think that's been tough. I think it's gonna, if blue tanks become a thing again, because they used to be, but if they
yeah.
become a thing again, it's gonna take a little creativity. Like I don't know if I'm saying this guy's name right. Eager. Do you know
I
who?
think it's Ajir. So I've
Ajir.
actually,
Okay.
I feel a sense of pride in trying to pronounce the names correctly, and so I've actually looked into some of these, and
Yeah.
everyone was saying Aegir, and I was like, that can't be right. And I was
Right.
saying it for a while, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna I'm gonna fix this, and so yeah, there are different pronunciations depending on what part of the world that name is being said, but Ajir I think is a safe bet.
Yeah, I think Ajir is probably right. That does sound good. So there's a couple blue heroes that could be useful, and we just had one come out this month that you tested as both a tank and a flank,
Yeah,
and that's Krampus.
yeah,
What
yeah.
did,
I
what
think
did you think about that? What was the feel? Because I saw the videos. Um, what was your feel between his placement?
I think he's a better tank, and the reason one quick thought I want to say real quick is the Tuluria thing got out of control, and I think it's because of how widely available she was, and the fact that she had another widely available hero to pair with, and the two together were just too strong. So I think they'll never make that mistake again of releasing heroes of the month that are too strong, which is unfortunate because we've seen a lot of lackluster heroes of the month lately. But yeah, I think that was a problem of abundance.
Yeah, I
Um,
also think that what they do, this is very true of this month. They're cognizant of what other heroes they're putting out this month, and there's a bunch of good ones because there's Krampus and there's ninjas and there's costumes, and
yeah,
so I've noticed the heroes of the month that they put out when they know they're. Oh, and there's also the Knights of Avalon right now too, and they know when they're putting out good heroes. They don't want to put too many out at the same time, so I think that they typically, will make the hero of the month not so great those months.
yeah, yeah. But to get back to Krampus, it's funny. Right as he came out, I was looking for a movie to watch and watched this terrible. You can't call it a horror movie, but it's like a movie about Krampus, and it was just so bad. But the timing was really funny. Um, but yeah, I think he's really good. I still give the nod to Black Knight because I think Black Knight is more dangerous. They're obviously compared because they're both taunt heroes and they both have a scaling buff of some kind. Um, so yeah, I think Black Knight has a much higher potential. The fact that everyone on the team, if things go right, can have plus 145% attack, and he can just reduce multiple shots to one, is like incredibly strong. Krampus is more of like a bunker type hero where he makes himself really strong and everyone has to hit him. But I think it depends. Black Knight's a little more random. Um, but yeah, he's a great hero. I don't think we're gonna see him change the meta very much because there aren't enough other good blue tanks. Like people love to hate on a cheer because I don't know why exactly, um, but yeah, I don't think there's enough other good blue tanks. I don't think enough people can get Krampus for that to become a war thing. So I think the people that have him were like, hey, maybe let's try blue tanks in war because I want to try out this new hero I got. But I don't think we're going to see that. I think red is definitely possible, more so at the top because you have your Black Knights and your Garnets. She's also really, for being a squishy tank, not a squishy hero, but for being a squishy tank, she's pretty hard to take out. Um, since releasing the ninjas, they have tweaked to them so that if they're about to die, they'll fire their special wherever it's at. Because before they would randomly determine ahead of time whether it was going to be ×1, ×2, or ×3. And now, if it was going to be ×3 and they're only at ×1 but they're about to die, then they will fire. So they made them a little bit smarter, and for that reason, she's pretty tough to take out with the team-wide ailment block at super fast speed. Um, so yeah, a lot of tank thoughts all all mixed in there.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. All right. I think we are at the point of the show where we're going to take some questions. We'll take a break for questions, and then we have one more topic to talk about. First of all, thank you so much, Mark. Mark just gave us $50 and said, "Great content, guys. Frigg, Black Knight, and Odin is a bigger pain than Gravemaker, Teleria, and Vela ever was." What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think for raid defense, that's 100% true. And I'm curious, you're in a more you're in a top 100 alliance, and you've been in a top 100 alliance. So I'm curious to get your thoughts on this too. But I feel like what makes the best tank is a tanky punishing healer tank.
Hmm.
Because I think for raid defense, all you have to do is win once your team goes back to full health. With war, you have the potential to stand up against multiple hits, and so I think having a healer somewhere on the team can be beneficial. It does make your team a little bit less dangerous, but it does give you more survivability. And I think Teleria was great in that sense because she was super tanky. She was really annoying in that she screwed up all your mana speeds, and she was healing and providing minions. So she was keeping the rest of the team healthy. So I'm curious if in some alliances, especially lower down, certain teams can stand up to 6 attacks, and I think you never ever see that in top alliances.
Right.
So I would say maybe 2 attacks is a good sign, and 3 attacks probably almost never happens. So I'm curious to get your thoughts on this as well. Whether you think it's good to have a healer, or whether you think in a top alliance it's better just to have the most dangerous team you can and have it be fast. And if it only survives twice, that's good enough.
Yeah, those are some great thoughts, and I think uh, first I'm just going to think back on the history of tanks, and I would have to say at the top tier in the top 100, almost all of our war history, there's been a big tanky healer, like you're saying. I think almost never has a healer in any other position worked well. Most of the time because healers tend to be average speed or slow, and they just in the top 100 don't ever have time to fire. And by the time they do, everybody's ignored them, and like even if they get a chance to fire, everyone's killed all the other heroes first, so it's just healing itself, and that doesn't matter.
Yeah,
But in the tank position, the healer works as long as it's not just a healer. It has to do other things. Healing has to be its sort of like secondary effect.
totally.
And what that's doing is like keeping the team alive while it's reducing your mana. Or like back in the day when it was Guinevere, same mana reduction thing. So you can see there's a pattern there. It's like a
Yeah,
mess with your mana healer that tends to be the top tier tanks if it's really tanky like that.
and even
And
Shin was great for a while with that defense down. It really sped things up for you if you couldn't kill him.
sorry, you froze for just a moment when you said that. Which hero were you talking about?
Oh, Kunshin. I said even
Kenshin.
Kunshin was dominant for a while because he makes things dangerous for you in that, that's the punishing aspect of the healer tank. He's super tanky. His heal is significant. And then now you have defense down and everyone else around him is stronger.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, thinking about Frigg, Black Knight, and Odin, and Mark, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but the defenses I've faced where that's been really difficult is when Frigg is the tank, and then you have Black Knight and Odin uh, as the flanks. That's been my experience where it's been really really tough, and I think that's really really good too. In fact, since they've nerfed Teleria Vela, that might be the better setup now. I've noticed in war, if Frigg goes off, it's just over. It is over. It's just so fast.
Yeah,
So, this might be a good example of a defense where you don't necessarily have the healer there to keep the team alive because it doesn't matter. Like,
yeah,
um, but if you can kill Frigg first, then the defense is a lot easier to defeat. So
yeah,
you have to hope to be able to use tiles and specials to kill Frigg first, but she's quick. And if
yeah,
she goes off, you're done. Like
yeah,
there's not much time to recover.
yeah. Yeah, more thoughts on that when we get to the, the current meta thing because there's
Hmm.
some interesting mechanics going on there.
All right, let's see what other questions that people have here. I noticed there's a lot of comments, not a lot of questions here, but let's see. On the point of, so Luke says, or asks, on the point of exhaustion and fatigue, do you think they've added too many features? Um, TOL, Ninja Tower, constant events, etc. What do you think?
Yes, it's way too much. I was looking at the Ninja Tower, and it took hours just to finish that. I wasn't going for high scores. I was just going for completion and seeing where that landed me. I might try different this time around. I don't know, but some of those matches were like 10 minutes sometimes if you're not using heavy items and stuff. So, yeah, I feel like they're, if you look at what do all these new features have in common? Summon portals, So I think the push is obvious. They realize, yeah, I guess, we say SG, we say Small Giant all the time. I wonder how much is just Zynga driving things and SG being the creative studio. I don't know where that balance lies, but it's very clear that they have realized we're in the business of selling heroes. If we want to make more money, let's make more heroes. If we want to release more heroes, let's make features that those heroes can go with. So I think there's a lot going on. Even people in my alliance are like, I don't think I'm going to do the Ninja Tower event. It takes a long time. The incentive is not that great for me. So I think we're seeing a lot of fatigue from a lot of people. It's like more stuff like Mythic Titans. I'm like, I don't even know if I want to participate in Mythic Titans. I was glad to see there's no Ascension material rolls for the high scores because it's just emblems, and emblems. We can talk about that with this current meta discussion because that's been a big change lately. But yeah, I'm kind of like, oh God, do I really want to, fight the Mythic Titans, learn the new mechanic there? So I think I like change. I like them adding new stuff, but I do feel like there's too much
Hmm.
too soon. And like when I saw that they put season 4 heroes in beta already, I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? There was a long gap after season 1 and a long gap after season 2, and now we're months away from the end of season 3, and they're already working on the next thing. So
Hmm.
yeah, I think there's too much. I think it's moving too quick, and I think the motives for doing so are obvious, and I think they're turning a lot of people off.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on that, and I'm somewhat ashamed to say, and at the same time, like it's sounding like it's pretty normal, but I haven't even started the Knights of Avalon event yet.
Yeah,
Like I haven't because I just haven't had time. Like I know I need a
yeah,
chunk of time where I just sit down and can focus on it. And like I'm working and stuff. Like I work in
me
a
too.
school. I can't be like doing the event like with kids there.
Yeah,
I'm sure they'd have fun. Like maybe they would join in. I don't know, but like
yeah,
but that's not a very responsible thing for me to do as a working adult. So I don't do that. I wait until I have a chunk of time, which maybe later today.
yeah,
So I might, but season. I mentioned this in my last stream too. I haven't even done season 3 stages in a while. It's been a couple months because I just like we're in the part of that map where you have to sit down and concentrate on it. You can't just put the auto thing on and go. And like so I need time to sit down and do that. And there's just not time to do everything. What I will say is kind of nice about all these events, if there's a positive, is it lets you pick and choose what you enjoy. So you can skip the things you don't enjoy, especially if the rewards aren't great.
yeah,
And secondly, it does reward you for grinding. So for those cheap to play or free to play players that want to get a little bit of an edge, even on people who spend some more money, um, complete the events because they come with things like this event. I mean, absolutely, you should complete the Knights of Avalon event because of how many emblems they give you. If
yeah,
you can complete it, and you're a free to play or cheap to play player, you're really giving yourself an advantage. That is a benefit that comes to all of these. But I think I had a mindset before of trying to do absolutely everything as a top level competitive player so that I was ahead of everybody else in the game, making sure I did everything. And it used to be possible to do that.
yeah.
And it's
Good
getting to
luck
the point
now.
where it's not, right? So I think I have a mindset of where like I'm supposed to do that. I'm supposed to do everything. But I
Yeah,
think that shift has to happen because like I'll give you one example, the Legends portal. I've never once done the stages in the Legends portal, like the event that goes with it,
never
because
once.
never once because
Wow.
um I don't really first of all need any of those heroes, so I don't need to get the coins, but like
Yeah,
I I find it much more valuable just to farm the map and have resources. So I have battle items available for Titans. If I stop and use a significant chunk of my world energy for that stuff, I just don't have enough resources than for battle items, which I need. So
Yeah.
I found it more valuable just to farm and skip that one.
Yeah, I feel like if I can sympathize and relate to the feeling of wanting to stay ahead of all these things and to be competitive and all that kind of stuff. And I think ultimately that's our cross to bear, if you will. Um, and I think if you do try to do that, especially with the amount of money it can cost to stay at the top with keeping up with the new latest strongest heroes, trying to keep your troops leveling up all the time, it can get really expensive and it can totally burn you out. Like I've never even tried to compete in one of the. Well, I tried once to compete in just the rare um, section of, I don't even remember which event it was now, just to see if I could top 1,000. And I only used like 3 flasks, maybe. I used a decent amount of items, and I couldn't get higher than top 3,000 at the time, and it was taking a lot of time. And I was like, I'd rather use these flasks for farming, for Atlantis Rises, because at this point I'm still leveling up a bunch of heroes. So um, yeah, it was just like that was one small piece of one small thing. But if you're trying to stay on top of everything, the top of Ninja Tower, competing in all the events across all the different difficulty levels, like uh, yeah,
Yeah,
I wish you luck because that's gonna be intense.
absolutely. And I was oh, the thought just left my mind. But we have another question here. Since you've been talking about season 4 heroes, I don't know the answer to this. Maybe you do. Joan asks, is there a timeline for season 4?
I've seen nothing yet. It looks like I was not even first to the party. I just was in a line group and saw people were talking about season 4 in beta, and I was like, "Season 4? Are you kidding me?" And I've alerts set up on the forum, but for some reason it never works for me. And it had been out for 2 days, and I was like, "Okay, well, I guess I'm not the first to notice and talk about this, but like, what is going on?" So the only thing I've seen is them talking about the heroes. I think there's 7 5-star heroes that are being tested in beta. Um, but I've seen nothing about when that is supposed to come out, and I hope not anytime soon because I feel like that's just too quick. It's just accelerating too fast if that's already like being planned and announced. Yeah, so I'm not sure when that's coming out. I'm kind of hoping it's not for the next 6 months at least.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't know.
I'm wondering if they're trying to tighten up the timeline a little bit and start season like the new season like the week
Right
after the
away.
other season ends. Yeah, I'm wondering. I'm just wondering, especially with this timing, but we'll see.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
I've not been using all my world energy on season 3, but when I have extra and I'm not doing something else with it, I'll play 1 or 2 stages just to keep some consistent progress. And so I'm mostly current on normal mode, but I'm only on like province 3 on hard mode. So and I've never finished season 2 on hard mode. One, I haven't quite needed the ascension materials you get from that yet. Two, it's just so much world energy that I would have to do that during Atlantis Rises to make any decent progress, but I'm usually farming the whole time. Um, so yeah, when do you expect? I guess I don't care if people finish. It's like you said, it's up to you to choose what you want to prioritize your time on. But I just think it's too much.
hmm It's definitely too much if you're gonna try to do everything. That's for sure. And I think I'm at the point where I'm not doing everything. Like
Yeah,
it is too much.
yeah.
So, but I mean, I don't know. I don't know what I think about that yet.
And this is
I
coming from two people that are making content for the game, and we're like, this is too
yeah.
much. Like we're spending a lot of time thinking about the game and playing the game, and even we're like, yeah, this is too much.
Absolutely. All right. We have a question here from Riley. Do you think Anatel is still a good tank compared to the new tank people?
I think so. The question always comes down to whether you're talking about raid defense or war defense, and I didn't think they were different for a while, and then I came to realize how they are different. There's just different strategies for it. And if you're going to be in a competitive alliance, you have to coordinate your tank colors and ideally your flank colors as well, though that's not really mandatory. So for raid defense, my philosophy is if you're in diamond, it's fine. If you want to change it past there to have fun, awesome. I support people to make teams that they think are fun, to level the heroes that they think are fun, and to enjoy the game. The defense is the part you're not actually playing, so don't prioritize a strong raid defense if it means you're choosing a hero that you're not really going to use on offense. So Onatel can definitely hold you in diamond. So for raid defense, yeah, she's fine. I think and she is pretty tanky. I think she doesn't punish quite enough if I'm dissecting her more abstractly. for war, it depends on what other yellow tanks there are. So there's always Guinevere, Onatel. I don't know if there's that many good yellow tanks, but I don't think we're going to see yellow tanks again in
Yeah.
war anytime soon. I guess Odin is a decent tank since he's a paladin, but not a great tank. So I think, yeah, I
I
think
think
that's
it definitely depends on what tier of the game you're in, and um, she can be a good flank too, so she's a little flexible on defense.
yeah.
She's not great on offense, but if she's next to a purple tank like Kunshin or something like that, that used to be a pretty good defense setup where you had Kunshin as a tank and Anatel as a flank
Mm,
um, back in the day because it was just, I mean, those were two of the tankiest heroes that were out at the time, and they would kind of work together. Kunshin would heal the team and work to defeat the attacking team, and Anatel would suck the mana away at the
hmm
same time and speed up. But Anatel gets faster, the more she goes off. So, all right,
yeah.
moving on to the next question. Nemanja asks, do you think at some point Hero Academy will be updated?
I don't. They seem, while it's hard to understand what they're thinking, they have demonstrated some clear ways of doing things. One is that they're not, I don't think they're ever going to make any meaningful buffs to season one heroes. I think the costumes were their version of that, and it sucks that it's behind another paywall. But the amount of money they put into developing that feature and rolling it out, and all the new hero art and all that stuff, they're not going to undercut themselves just by giving a flat buff to everyone. Um, and so I think they made their stance with the Hero Academy, where they said, I don't know if you saw that post on the forum, but people were like, "This is not a good solution for duplicate heroes." One, I still have not even researched level 10, and I've been playing this game every day for a year and a half, and I'm
I haven't
working
even
towards
built
it.
it.
Yeah,
Have I
and
built it? I don't think
I
I've
have
built it.
VIP, so I have two builders. So it's like even I haven't been able to build that thing yet, or to research it. The last level finishes in like 6 days maybe. Um,
Yeah, I
but yeah, I
haven't I
don't think
haven't even built it. I don't have the building.
that's funny. I'm gonna use a few things on. I do like the. This is a little bit of a tangent here, but I do like the trainer hero part and the troop thing. Like I feel like leveling troops is important. I can't bring myself to spend money on leveling troops, just because of how much this game just becomes a money sink in general. Um, but yeah, I do like those aspects of it. It gives you a little trickle of extra, XP for heroes and troops. But I think they've made a clear stance that once they do something, they're not going to buckle on it. And they're, I think the Hero Academy is released. I think it's going to stay what it is. And I don't know if you saw that post on the forum, but they responded to people being like, "This is not a good solution for duplicate heroes. We've been waiting on this for like 2 years, and this is not a good solution." Um, and they acknowledged that and said, "Well, we realize that we do think the building has value." I'm paraphrasing. We do think the building has value, so we are going to release it as is, but we are going to work on a better solution for duplicate heroes like soon or in the near future, like just a very open-ended kind of thing. So
Hmm.
I think whatever it is, I think they want to appear strong and decisive in their moves. So if they release something, they do it as is. Nerfing heroes, I guess, is a little bit of a detraction to that, but I think we're going to see a different solution for the duplicate heroes, and I don't think they're going to change the Hero Academy. They might tweak it
That's
a little
good.
bit, but I think it's going to stay how it is.
That's really good, and I hope they do. I've been saving a lot of duplicate heroes just for the hope that they do something like that, because the Hero Academy isn't the solution. And the reason I haven't even built the building was because when I was testing it in beta, I had a bunch of Delilahs, for example, and I went and a Delilah turned into an Asarnia, and then another
Yeah,
Delilah turned into a Marjana, and then
yeah,
another Delilah. I'm like, whoa, what the heck? Like I'm getting less value out of the stuff I
yeah.
already have. It's not like I'm gonna level all these Delilahs, but like I definitely don't need more
It's a
Asarnias
downgrade.
or Marjanas and stuff. Like,
Yeah, I feel like they should have given an increased percentage based on the rarity of the hero that you're putting in.
yeah,
These heroes of the month being maybe an 8% chance or 10% or whatever. Um, but yeah, that part's unfortunate. I'm gonna use level 10 just for fun because who knows what you'll get out of it. I don't I don't need quite as many of those recruits and other resources at this stage in the game. And I do still need a couple troops, and you can get ninja troops from there too, I think. So I'll probably run level 9 as well.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see what I'm going to use it for, but I think it does have value. I think it's an unfortunate end game building. Like, if you're new, wait a year and you can maybe use it. Like it's kind of ridiculous. I think you should prioritize your farms and your other more
Yeah.
useful things. But yeah.
Absolutely. We have a couple comments here. Second Star, thank you very much. Says loving the live collab. Thanks, guys.
Sweet. Thanks for coming.
Dental Surf Combat, thank you too. Says love what you guys are doing. Thank you so much. Oil
Dental
Holland
Surf
says,
Combat is quite a name.
yeah. Oil Holland says Spock looks like he is ready for poker, and
Yeah.
Duchess says you look
Except
kind
I
of
got
cute.
the mirrored glasses on, you'd be able to see my hand.
Yeah, yeah, right. How about that? All right, let's see. We have a couple more questions here, and then we're going to get to our last topic. If you could buff one hero, if you could make them stronger but not transform them, who would you choose and why?
So I'm the kind of person that I'm like, all right, if I'm going to answer this question, I need to have the most definitive answer possible, and I'm not going to be able to do that right now for obvious
Mm-hmm.
reasons. But one that I've thought about, so I kind of have this answer ready a little bit, is I really wish Marie Therese from, I'm not going to try with the French pronunciation, but from the Pirates event, I feel like she's a missed opportunity. Probably extra bitter because I pulled 2 of her. But if we look at a hero like Black Knight as an example, what's so good about Black Knight is the synergy within his hero special. So if you set him off, you have taunt for 3 turns, so you can't touch anyone else on the rest of the team. He has a 50% chance to reduce any incoming damage, including tiles, to 1. And everyone else, including himself, gets an attack buff of 45% that increases by 20% for every hit, including tiles. So 5 hits on a hero, and they have 145% attack, which is huge. So what's great about him is he goes off, and you have to decide, do I want to try to kill him, or do I want to try to keep making moves on the board? If you make moves on the board, not only is everyone staying alive, but you're also charging up their attack boost, which is going to hurt you even more. Or if you're like, okay, I can't afford to let these slash attacks come in with this high attack boost, I'm going to try to kill him. So you waste a snipe and it gets reduced to 1. So it really kind of messes with like what approach do I want to take here? Do I want to try to kill him and take the gamble? Do I want to try to move the board and take the gamble that I'm not going to set someone off with 100% attack boost or something? So there's a strong synergy within his special, within the different aspects of his special. With Marie, you set her off, she does a little bit of damage, she does a heal of return, and she has a defense boost. If you kill someone, they turn into a zombie. So the 2 problems there are, if you turn into a zombie when you die, there's sort of a benefit to being killed. Then why do you give a defense boost? It's like, I feel like she should have an attack boost, so that then you're having to decide, okay, do I want to try to, say Liana's about to fire, I don't want her to kill my healer. Do I want to kill her and turn her into a zombie, or do I want to try to wait it out and survive the attack boost? So I think there needs to be more synergy there. She was just kind of a clumsy hero where it's like, what is she supposed to do? What do you really want to use her for? And I just think that was a missed opportunity. It was a very cool and refreshing mechanic that just fell totally flat and is being used by very few people. So I was disappointed to see them not put a little bit more care into that, being that it was a new, fresh mechanic.
Yeah, yeah, that's a really good, thoughtful answer, and I feel like my answer is a lot less thoughtful. And just quick and dirty, but like Kagan, they could just pump all of his stats up at this point.
Or make him average or
Not
something.
change
Yeah.
anything, but just pump it all up and just make him more useful. He's just not
Yeah.
useful right now. So
Yeah.
it'd be nice if people who got him could use him at least a little bit. And so I would say pump Kagan up.
That's
Let's
something
see.
that really bothers me, is how in the events, event heroes are hard to get. You have a 1% chance, and then if there's 5 of them, you have a 0.2% for each hero. So just landing an event hero is really hard, and the fact that there are some that are so much better than others is really just is disappointing to me on a personal level. It's like someone gets excited that they finally pull an event hero, and you're like, oh, I got the one that sucks. You're like, great, There's too
Mm-hmm.
much of that in this game, or you get lucky. Like I've now pulled 2 Mother Norths off just a few tokens, and it's like great. What am I going to do with 2 of these? And it makes you feel bad complaining because someone else is like, oh, I wish I had that. But it just comes down to whether a hero is useful to you, and if you're getting a bunch of duplicates with materials you don't even have, you're like, all right, I got lucky, and I also lost at the same time, and you feel like you can't even complain about it because people are going to be like, oh, boo-hoo for you, you got 2 5 stars.
Mm-hmm. Hey, so we have an interesting question here from Joan again.
All right.
So Censure is a player who's in my alliance who came up with the censure method. And
Yeah.
Joan asks, does Mr. Spock have an opinion on the censure method?
Well, I do have an opinion. I have an opinion on most things, so that's a fair question to ask. I've used it myself. I did a video on it. I was curious when I heard about it. It seemed like something that a lot of people were talking about, so I was like, all right, I'm going to make a video on this. The people I'd seen that were doing videos before were not really following it to the letter. So I was like, all right, the difference for my video is I'm going to do this exactly as it's written. So I did that. I recorded it. It's up there, so you can go find that video, and it did work for me in the video. However, I've tried it at other times where it hasn't worked. Like there may be some, I've seen your video on the psychology of these kinds of things, and there may be some psychological bias, like, oh, it worked for me, therefore it works, or like it makes sense intuitively, so therefore it works, and those are both things that are not really predictors of whether something is statistically accurate. So I think it's an interesting idea. I think if it did work, it's been talked about so much that SG would have tried to patch it. It's kind of like when they had that beta fiasco where people were able to use the beta app to preview boards that they were going to have live in the game. And once that came out, they're like, all right, we got to patch this. So I think if the censure method did work, they probably would have patched it by now. So I don't know. It's sort of weird. And this game brings out superstition. I'm never been a superstitious person, and even has me questioning some of these things. So
Mm-hmm.
the whole like gambling luck aspect does put you in that mind state, and I think some people are more susceptible to that and to trying to notice patterns or hoping to find patterns and all that.
Yeah, I would encourage everybody, first of all, to go watch the video that Mr. Spock did on the censure method. And then secondly, I know it's longer, some time aside, but watch the psychology of randomness video I did because I do have a degree in psychology, and I had gotten through several classes and even done experiments in my time earning that degree where I learned a lot about how randomness affects your mind. And so I talk all about it in that. And it's interesting because randomness has a really powerful effect on our mind. Like our brains just can't really comprehend true randomness. We're wired to look for patterns and we're wired to look for meaning. That's how we survive in the world. So when we
Yep.
encounter things that are actually random, our brain just can't comprehend it. And it starts to do things like develop superstitions and stuff like that. But what's funny is it's not just us as people, like animals develop superstitions too for the same reason. When you introduce randomness to like pigeons and dogs and stuff like that, they also start to develop really strange behaviors. So the question is the censure method a superstition or does it actually work? And I've never really given a definitive answer to that because I feel like data is needed. There is the
Yeah.
possibility that there's some random line of code in the game that just makes it possible. I Based on my education and how I feel about things like that, I don't think that's likely. But I can't
Yeah.
say unless I see the data. I also have, with my psychology degree, it was a Bachelor of Science, which meant I did a lot of data collection and analysis and things. And I don't say things definitively until I see a good amount of data to come with that. We have
Yeah.
another question here that's kind of interesting. And I like this. Oil Holland 311.
Hmm.
I want
I
to ask you
recognize that
guys
from my
something.
comment section.
Yeah. I want to ask you guys something. Do you truly like the game still, or are you invested? Both of you guys' videos have changed. You seem upset with the game more often than not. I could be wrong.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a great question. I think I do still like the game. I wouldn't. I tend to be pretty picky and selective about how I spend my time. So if I'm not interested in something, I will just not do it. Um, and that goes for the game as well. So there's things that are, I think, where that frustration comes from is because of how much I like the game. that I'm invested in the decisions that they're making. And I feel like if they're making bad decisions, it's like, come on, guys, like show a little respect for the player base, or like let's tone the greed down a little bit. Like you're making hundreds of millions of dollars. Can we not have a little more balance here? Um, so yeah, I think my frustrations around the game are because I like the game and because I want to see them do the right thing. Maybe that's a flawed perspective to have, or not the kind of thing I should be hoping for. But yeah, I do still enjoy the game. I really enjoy connecting with people on YouTube. That's been a whole crazy experience. I've just crossed 5,000 subscribers, and I remember having 30 subscribers and watching it go up one at a time over multiple days or something like that. Um, so yeah, I still enjoy the game. I still enjoy connecting with people on YouTube. I still enjoy sharing my perspective of what I think about it, and it seems like people find value in both of us sharing our thoughts. And I think we're a couple of the more analytical players that are doing this. So yeah, I still enjoy all those aspects, despite there being things that frustrate me that they do. Um,
Yeah, I will
Often,
say
maybe.
definitively yes. I love this game, and in fact, I want to add on to this because I try, or at least throughout the history of me making videos, I've tried to be as positive as I can because and I talk about this in actually the psychology of randomness video too. We are also wired to be negative. The reason being because when we get focused on negative things, we can clearly see problems that need to be solved, and so it's just so natural for us to be negative as human beings. And so what that means is we need to be intentional about being positive. So I try in my videos more often than not to lean towards the positive side of things, but you'll remember I came out with a few videos a couple months ago of what's wrong with E&P. I noticed this big wave all at once. It seemed like an enormous number of players were leaving the game. And that was a point at which I said, you know what, I need to point out what is negative right now because there's problems to solve. And I felt like I had a good understanding of what the problems were and what needed to be changed and wanted to not just complain. Those videos, like, I never want to complain and then just leave it at that. Like,
Mhm.
I don't think that's productive. So I made those videos to point out problems and then provide solutions. And when I provide solutions, I want to provide more solutions than I think we actually need because I want options. So that's what I did with those videos. And what's kind of cool is I don't know if it just happened to be random. I don't know if they also understood what the problems were and were already planning, but it seemed like they responded to those videos very quickly. Some of the things that I suggested in the videos they've done, and I have to say that today, I am excited to open up the game and play it a lot more than I was 2 months ago when I made that video. And I was really worried because I saw a lot of people leaving the game, and I was like, this has to stop. They need to change something immediately, or they're going to lose their player base. And if they do that, then it's not going to be fun to play the game anymore. And
Yeah,
also because I was feeling like it was a drag then, like I was doing the same repetitive behaviors every day and it didn't feel great. So, I think the changes they've made have infused a lot more fun and excitement into the game. And I'm really enjoying tinkering around with war right now and trying to figure out what's right. That's exciting to me.
yeah, yeah.
All right. So, one last question, and then we'll move on to our last discussion. What's your favorite hero artwork in the game?
Ooh. So again, I feel like to answer this to my standards, I'd have to look at every hero card right now. But since I obviously can't do that, one that I've always really liked is Lady of the Lake. I feel like has really cool hero art, like the combination of colors and textures and all the detail that they put into that. I feel like is really cool. And I have her. I was super excited when I pulled her. I pulled Black Knight at the same time and was like, meh, I don't know about this guy, who's now turned out to be my favorite Avalon hero by far and one of my top heroes. And I haven't maxed Lady of the Lake yet. Yeah, I feel like she fell a little short of what I would have hoped for at slow speed, but I think she is one of my um, favorite arts. Hero
Yeah.
arts.
By the way, this question came from Patchy Moo. I didn't say Patchy Moo Gaming is who asked this question. I think one that's kind of been forgotten that I like is Guinevere. I just like the art on that. People focused a
Yeah,
lot on the ability, but the art is really cool too.
yeah,
Interesting that they come from the same event. uh, as Lady of the Lake. But
Yeah.
the my all-time favorite art. I hope this doesn't sound boring, but it's true. It's the art I like the best is Demisha. She's a
Mm,
season one hero, but like I think that the quality of the art on that one is what originally drew me to the game, and there weren't a whole lot of other heroes than season one heroes when I started playing. I'm
well,
trying to even think if there were any. Were there any? I mean, there were heroes of the month in season one, and that was pretty much it when I
yeah.
started. And I always found that art to be cool, and to this day, I find it to be cool. I
Mm,
just like it a lot. So, there we go. All right, our last topic for today is just the meta overall. So we've talked about war, and we have talked a little bit about
just
meta.
that, just
Yeah.
that topic.
And so this includes war, but this includes like raids and things like that too. I guess the first question is, what effect do you think the nerfs had?
Huge, um, and far-reaching. I think the effects have been have been significant in the game itself in shifting the meta, but I think they've been even bigger as they've rippled out throughout the community. I think people are pissed off, and I think rightly so. And I have a buddy in our alliance who leveled up two Tellurias, and I would be, and he's mad now, because like she's not even that usable on offense. You can still use her, but her effectiveness is significantly reduced. Um, so that whole situation, I really wonder what they think about it, because I wonder if people have opinions of like, oh, they did it on purpose. They drove up the money and they made more money than it cost them in customer service time to deal with the fallout. And it's like, sure, that's one opinion. I don't know what I really think, but I'm very curious if I have to imagine that was a far from ideal situation from them that they totally want to avoid. So I don't think it was pure greed, because that was just a mess for them. I'm sure they lost a lot of people, but
They lost a lot of people for that. So
yeah,
yeah, I don't think it was greed.
and rightly so, because I felt pretty pissed off. I labored for like a week and a half on what blue to ascend, and I was like, you know what, Vela, she has that extra damage against red. She only does attack down to red, and like I had Fenrir also and some other person, and finally it was like chose Vela, and I was like, oh, I really like Vela actually. Her damage to red is good. For offense, you're usually not facing teams with multiple red heroes on them, so it doesn't come into play that much. But I was like happy with my choice, and then now I'm like, they need to they need to create like a hero reset button, like the reset emblem
Hmm.
tokens thing, where you can just get your ascension materials back. I don't see why they don't offer that. They could still sell it, and you could get drops of them every once in a while, but like gives people a chance to pull resources out of heroes that they don't want or that aren't good anymore, even if it's because SG made them not good anymore, or less good. And I'm not going to say those heroes are just unusable and terrible, but it's totally shifted things. And I think a little bit of good has come out of that, because it's been fun to see the variety in the top teams. I skim the leaderboard every once in a while just to kind of try to get an idea of what's happening. And if I see a team that's been offline for hours and is still holding really high cups, I sort of take note of that mentally. So I think it has definitely brought variety back to the game, and I do appreciate that part. But I feel like the way they went about it is really unfortunate.
Yeah, and Thomas made a comment here in the chat about going all in on Teleria early and then being really ticked off whenever they nerfed her. I would say Teleria is still one of the best tanks. Like I'm not sad to have a fully max leveled Teleria, and like even in today's war, we're still using her today.
Mm-hmm.
We do switch our defenses around in our tanks now. I don't think she's I think there's an argument to be made that she's still a top tier tank, but not necessarily the best, especially depending on your roster. And I think that's kind of where they want to be. So, do I think the nerfs worked to diversify the game? Yes. I agree with you, Spock. I don't think it was necessarily the right way to go about doing that. And I said that in my that was the one thing I cautioned as a solution in my What's Wrong with EMP series was I don't think a straightforward nerf is the solution you want to go for, because that's just going to tick people off, and that's exactly what happened.
Yep.
And yet they did some other creative solutions, and I think that, all told, I think that the nerfs work to help diversify things. It's made things a little bit more fun, but so did some of the other things that they introduced over the last couple of months.
Yeah.
So what do you think the strategy is now?
In terms of what?
Well, defense, offense, like what's in the current meta? Let's start with raids to keep things simple, but then like maybe spill over into war. It
Yeah.
used to be status ailments, so that's been the meta for like 9 months. Is just load up as many status ailment heroes as you can on offense and on defense, and then try to cleanse yourself on offense. What's the strategy now?
I don't know that it's landed in one place for me. I can tell you a couple observations that I've made of top teams. One of them was a video that I made showing what I thought, I think it was called like the most difficult new defense meta or something like that. And that was Black Knight tank, friggin' Odin flank, and then Finley and Jabberwock or Cobalt and Onyx on the wings. And I still think that's one of the best teams that you can possibly make. And I think friggin' Odin are the best flanks in the game right now. Gravemaker held that title for a long time, and he's not going anywhere. But the two of them together is just ridiculous, and the way that it makes you question, like one of the first heroes that I can think of that they released that really made you question the way that you were going to play was Jabberwock, where he was on the wing, just kind of lurking there for later in the match. But it made you think differently. Like I've seen you talk about this. I want to point out to everyone watching that when I was starting to play, you were one of the channels that I watched a lot because I really appreciated the analytical perspective that you added to things and the way that you thought about the game, and that was kind of it meshed with the way that I thought about things. Um, but you mentioned at one point that the safest places on the board are the wings because mathematically a hit 3 hero will hit that position slightly less often than the middle 3. And I was like, oh, that's very interesting. And then Jabberwock came out, and now you're like, okay, the middle used to be the most dangerous part, but now the wings are uniquely dangerous. You used to, hide your weaker heroes out on the wings. And so he really made you question the way that you attacked with your team. And I think that kind of helped get inside your head. And I liked how he did that. And then now you have friggin' Odin, especially with a red tank, where you're like, all right, these heroes are stronger based on how many greens and yellows are on the board. But do I really want to bring a green yellow team to attack a red tank? Like it.
Right.
And then if you have Jabberwock on there too, you're like, oh my god, what am I gonna do here? Where am I gonna put my heroes? What colors am I gonna use? Like it totally shakes you up and throws you out of what you would normally do. And I think that's really cool. A lot of people seem frustrated by them being good in that regard. I kind of feel like it's okay to have good heroes in the game, and that we shouldn't expect to be able to beat every team with any roster. It's just not realistic. Um, so I don't think having good heroes like that hurts the game. I think everyone then points like, oh, well, what about Solari and Vela? And it's like, well, they were way more available than those heroes. Like, if you look at the portals now that they're not featured, there's like maybe 15 Valhalla heroes, and they all split a 1.3% chance.
Mhm.
So you have like a 0.1% chance at pulling a specific Valhalla hero, whereas the heroes of the month, you had a 1.3% chance in every single portal. Maybe they have a 1% chance. I can't remember, but point being, they're much more rare. So it doesn't bother me. I'm like, all right, cool. I didn't beat this team. Fine, I'll play the next one. Like whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I like the element they bring of like, oh my god, what team am I going to use? And even myself, who's been playing and thinks a lot about the game, I'm like, I don't know what the best strategy is to fight this team, and I like that.
Yeah. I have noticed a diversity in strategies too, and I think it's mainly just people trying to figure out things until they settle on something. I have noticed a little bit of a pattern though,
Hmm.
at least for defenses, and I think this is true of offense too somewhat, but it's actually kind of an old school thing from back in the day, maybe a little bit from before when you were playing. I think when you started playing, status elements really started taking over. It was like the best ones were like Gravemaker and all that
I
kind of
started
stuff,
in
but
July of 2019.
okay. Yeah, so status elements were really starting to take over at that point. And about 2 years ago, especially a few months into when I was playing, uh, the meta was really dependent on defense down and direct damage. And at that time, there was a lot of you wanted to do like an area of effect defense down, whether you're on offense or defense, and then snipers to hit the defense down heroes to kill them. And at that time, there weren't emblems, so that strategy worked. Now there are emblems
Lots of
and
emblems.
lots of emblems. And I think that it's somewhat shifted back to that defense down, direct damage kind of thing, but instead of snipers, it's area of effect heroes now. Because the area of effect heroes do a lot more than just direct damage. They have other abilities too that also benefit. the team, but I'm noticing some, and we'll probably talk about this a little bit on which heroes are rising and falling, but in just some of the stuff that you're talking about, like with Frigg and Odin and Black Knight, um, that's getting back to, attack boost and defense down and just some serious direct damage
Old
to all the
Faithful.
heroes. Mm-hmm. And really, when you boil this game down to its simple parts, that's kind of been my strategy all along, even with status ailment heroes, is uh, you need a little bit of defense down, you need a little bit of attack boost, you need a little bit of direct damage. And then if
Yeah.
you can layer on status ailments on top of that, that's a pretty good way to go. But I think that there's some new heroes popping in that are not status ailment heroes. I'm seeing repetitively people using heroes that are doing that direct damage or doing attack boost and stuff like that. And so if you bring along like a costume regard or something like that, it's not actually doing anything anymore because it's except for the heal over time. But yeah. So okay, what heroes do you think are on the rise then?
Frigg and Odin for sure. I feel like are on everyone's short list now because I think they are. I still think they're the best flanks in the game right now because not only are they very good independently, but together it's crazy. So Frigg, especially Frigg on the left flank, Odin on the right flank. If she goes off first on defense, depending on the emblem build you have, she's probably doing about 500. He would normally do, depending on tiles on the board, obviously, he would normally do 4 to 500. Their damage mechanic is the same, but her attack stat can go up higher than his. So then he goes off, and after the defense down, he's doing like 700, and then everyone's mana's boosted, and so now the fast wings are going off. So the two of them together are very good. And again, I think that's fine. You know,
Mm-hmm.
they're rare enough that it's not going to completely turn the game on its end. So maybe that happens at the top, and it's like, all right, whatever. So anyways,
Yeah.
I won't drill that point too much, but that's the way that I feel about it. So I think they're definitely on the rise. I think people are now, including myself, really into Scotty. Um, because those stacks can be cleared by no one. I was blown away when I used my Gazelle and the stack stayed. I was like, what? So there's no hero in the game right now aside from like Amiona or Stonecleave, I think, that go into ghost form, but even then they only clear stacks on themselves. So there's no hero in the game that I know of that can either block or remove stacks. So she's in like a very unique, strong category there by herself. Um, so we're starting to see a pattern here that I'm saying all season 3 heroes. I think heroes of the month are definitely not on the rise, unfortunately. That's kind of moved the opposite direction where they're making them all weaker now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, who else is on the rise?
Yeah, I'll
I
rattle
think,
off a list here that I'm
yeah,
noticing
yeah, go for
with
it.
just a couple thoughts about why I think they're on the rise. But first, to your point about Frigg, and I mentioned this like earlier in the stream. It's interesting in the wars that I've been fighting. It's been those three in the front that's been really tough to deal with. But interestingly enough, it's been Frigg at the tank in the wars that I've been fighting, mainly because Teleria is still being used
Have you looked
in our
to see
wars.
if
But
have you looked to see which emblem build they're doing for her?
no,
Oh yeah, I'm
I
curious
haven't.
because
But
yeah,
I personally I would focus primarily on defense, um, because it's the special that you need to go off, so you need to keep her alive, and leveling the defense is the best way
yeah,
to keep her alive. So that's what
she's
I
sort
would
of
do
like a
personally.
support hero.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, I think those three in the front are definitely on the rise in whatever order. I think, like if green tanks fall out of favor, having Black Knight at the tank position, if I don't think we probably would do red tanks. I think we probably would do purple if we were switching to an all systematic color. But
Mm-hmm.
um, on that note, there's been some heroes still with Teleria in there as the tank in our wars that I've seen on the rise. And a couple of those as red flanks are Zimkeitha and Anzo, replacing Gravemaker and Jean-Francois. The reason is because Zimkeitha is a cleanser still. I think people forget that. But she does attack boost. And so, like, all these cleansing healers that we've leveled up and brought in are useless against that. And that makes that whole team stronger. And Anzo, uh, interestingly enough, like I've never found him to be like an A hero. He's always been solid or whatever, but like when he has emblems on the attack stat and can heal the team, just kind of generally like as a side effect with a big attack, that's pretty cool. Especially if you've got like a Frigg in there or something that's doing defense down and then Anzo goes off. He
Yeah,
kind of annihilates the attacking team and heals a lot. A couple
yeah.
others that are like Vela's leaving and people are putting in Master Lepus, which I thought is really interesting. There's a lot of Master Lepus showing up. Um, Alfreak and Ursina are on the rise as tanks because when we do very fast wars, it seems like everybody at my level has one or the other, and those are just devastating tanks to try and fight against. And then also, still with green tanks, Heimdall's on the rise again because of the attack boost. But also he's got that healing factor. And then lastly, Costume Elena as a flank hero is showing up a little bit. So those are heroes that I think are on the rise. I don't know if you thought of any others on the rise, but those are the ones that
Um,
I'm seeing people use more and more now.
yeah, actually, one that has kind of skyrocketed is Costume Catalan.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
and she's a hero I'd love to have. I think she's probably, it's hard to say with Frigg, but I think she might be the best green tank right now. I think she's better than Teleria because she can get up to a 980 defense stat with, I think, over 1500 HP, which is plenty for a tank. And she's fast. The damage is kind of secondary, but that dodge is so annoying.
Yes.
And even Cobalt, who has a 100% chance to bypass defensive buffs, dodge is not considered a defensive buff, so he can't get around that. She can even, any of those heroes with dodge can dodge dispel, so you can't even get rid of the dodge.
Right.
And if they dodge, all this at fast speed, if they dodge, you get a minion. So you're basically healing and not taking the damage of the attack that you would have. So like the trade off there is crazy, and she's
She's good.
really good.
She's good. She's really good.
Yeah.
That's a good one. So, last question. We're about at the end of our stream here, so we'll leave our viewers with this. Which heroes do you think are being overlooked, uh, but will become useful in the next couple of months?
Hmm. I think it depends on the meta. Like some older heroes, like you mentioned, can you mentioned to tell people not to feed away some of these heroes of the month because they can pop back up. And one of the ones I think of is Grizzul. When she came out, people were like, "Oh, she sucks," and then you're like, "Oh, well, she blocks all ailments, and that's a strong value." And now you have Vanda, who's kind of like Grizzul's sister. Um, I don't know. It's hard for me to say because I spend so much time thinking about it and looking at all the teams. I feel like I'm probably thinking about it more than other people. So it's hard for me to think of something. I'm trying to think of a hero that's not currently on the radar that could be, and I nothing is coming to mind.
I have a few thoughts,
Yeah, go for it.
and maybe when I start saying them, some things will come to mind. But I had been mentioning a couple of times throughout this stream that I'm actually considering not using Costume Regard as much because if there's nothing to cleanse, then why am I bringing him? And I do, however, really, really like some of the Costume 4 stars that they've come out with that I just haven't found much use for.
Hmm.
But now, if I'm not using Costume Rigard, guys, Costume Kirill and maybe Costume Bold Tusk, but Costume Kirill and Costume Melindor are two really good ones to bring because Costume Melindor not only dispels, which is really important, but it gives you a defense boost, which is really useful against some of these heroes that I said are on the rise. Costume Curel, you get to choose what you do with him. You can boost your own defense or you can give them defense down, and having that choice is always really powerful. So I think that for 4 star heroes, those are a couple on the rise and might actually replace Costume Rigard pretty well in some of these lineups. Some other ones I'm thinking, if minions are going to matter more, Delilah is another great healer to bring along. And if you don't need to cleanse, she's a 5 star healer that gives everybody minions. I mean, it's a huge, huge effect. And if minions matter, that's important.
Hmm.
Um, Ariel could be. I know she cleanses, but she does like a mana boost, and she does a lot of healing. And then Demisha is another one that I was thinking about. If you don't have Sashat, Sashat's like strictly better, but Demisha is important, the regular season 1 hero, because of her ability to dispel. So like if you have some of these heroes that are doing the attack boost, like Zimkeitha, she's going to dispel that effect. So I think dispellers are going to become more important again. So if you're looking for a hero to dispel effects that like stacks that the defense has, she's definitely one to consider. And then how about this one? Margaret. I think people are forgetting about Margaret because she sucked when she first came out. She was no
Yeah.
good. She was no good, but they buffed her. And think about what we've been talking about with where the meta is going. It's a lot of direct damage now, and she does the dodging thing that you were just talking about with Caitlyn. And
At
I
very
think,
fast speed.
yeah, at very fast speed. So if those of you who saved Margaret, again, good on you, because I think on offense, probably not defense, but on offense, she could potentially be a pretty good hero coming up. So I don't know if anything came to your mind there, but those are heroes that I think people might be overlooking right now and
Yeah,
might want to
Market
get
is an
back around
interesting
to.
one. I think I think Riposte is making a resurgence because of all the AoE damage on defense now. That um, if you can use that damage against them, that's to your benefit. So I think, especially costume Boral or just the costume bonus. I don't really like the costume version, but having the costume bonus, now he charges in 9 tiles with a level 5 monotroop. So essentially, he becomes functionally fast speed. So I think Riposte is going to make a resurgence, and then you obviously have um, Sif, who is a season 3 riposte hero and gives a mana boost at the same time. So I think that's something we might see more and more of as defenses are more focused on AoE damage, because one hit you can take him out. If you can heal afterwards, then you can recover from that, and that hero's out of the fight now. Um, but yeah, I really like what the costumes have done for the 4 stars, because like all the healers you mentioned, I used costume Bolt Tusk more than I used the regular Bolt Tusk. But all of those heroes were all average speed, and so that was 10 tiles. And I've said in my videos before that 8 tiles for fast speed and 10 tiles for average speed are a world apart, because typically those fast speed heroes are going to charge with 3 matches of 3 or 9 tiles, and your average speed heroes are going to charge with 4 matches of 3 for 12 tiles. It's
Mm-hmm.
much more awkward to try to match for 10 tiles equally. So when you can shave off 1 tile with that costume mana bonus, you're now making heroes that were a lot harder to use much more reliable. So I think that's what helped with costume regard being so widely adopted. Was it's like, oh, now he's fast and he's got great stats and his special is incredible, and he cleanses, which is really important. So when you think that Melindor, Kirill, Kashrek, even I like to use Kashrek as part of a team because he can boost. He can give you boosted HP, temporary HP. So yeah, that the mana bonus, I was shocked that they were willing to give so much away as part of the costume bonus, because the mana bonus is huge.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I think a lot of those 4 stars we could see more of, and that's where it's hard to tell. Like, to really know what's on the rise, you'd have to be able to see what people's attack teams are, and we just don't have that data. We can see what's on defense, but that's always a much thinner um, selection of heroes, because there are some things that just simply work better on offense. You can be more creative because you have more control over what's happening. So yeah, I think those 4 stars, and especially with new ones coming out, I can't remember if there's any that are very impactful. But we're gonna have this month a new costume drop, I think, and we'll see some more of those heroes being even better.
Yeah. Pachimu just said something in the chat that's really interesting about where the meta is heading, and it just made me think that we could see a rotating meta, and it kind of just depends. Like I think they could stop creating heroes right now, and we'd
Yeah,
start to see a rotating meta.
yeah,
And here's how it would go. So Pachimu says heroes that do no direct damage can counter riposte. So here's what we could see. The meta switches to a lot of this direct damage area of effect stuff with attack boost, but then if a lot of people start putting in riposte heroes to counter that, because you'll just wipe out that hero that goes off with the riposte. Then you might see or sorry, you might see status ailment heroes come back in to counter the riposte, right? So
yeah.
like it could just start rotating.
Yeah, my background is in the science side of things, specifically cellular and molecular biology. But I took evolution and some other courses like that, and what I immediately think of when I hear that mechanic is just how evolution works in nature, where something gets an advantage over something else, and then the other one responds to that and goes above that, and there's this ratcheting effect back and forth as the environment, responding to the environment, responding to predators, responding to prey. There's like this whole ratcheting effect where you create a reference point, and then now the world is responding to that reference point, and things change from there, and you get that kind of effect going on. So it's no surprise that we would see that possibility in the game as well, because that's just a natural phenomenon.
Yeah, yeah, totally. All right. Well, I think that's enough time. We've given our viewers a lot to digest and talk about in the chat. Thank you so much for joining us, guys. If you
Yeah,
haven't
thank you.
already, make sure to subscribe to both of us because we're going to be doing the Watchtower on both channels. This time it happens to be hosted on my channel, so it's real easy to hit the subscribe button. But I put in the description of this video how to get to Mr. Spock's channel so you can also subscribe to him. And then just look out for the Watchtower. We'll be scheduling this about once a month, and we'd love for you to join us and give us topics. Like you can comment in this video what you want us to talk about next time around. So next time we get on, we'll have some of those topics up and ready to go. All right. Any last words from you, Mr. Spock?
No, this is fun. I thought about doing stuff like this before. I was glad you had reached out, because this is an idea that I had kind of tossed around but just hadn't had the time to develop myself lately. So yeah, I enjoy kind of bridging channels. I feel like we've had similar ways of thinking about things. So I look forward to the next episode, and I hope you guys too.
Yeah, I had a blast. I had a lot of fun today, and I think that you and I are both so analytical. We certainly have no shortage of things to talk about. So,
Yeah.
so everyone, we'll see you next time, and catch you in the next one.